So now with Evan, there are 3 clipper techniques that I'm going to use today. I'm going to use attachment combs. Everybody's seen these, right? You attach them on a clipper, and it cuts a specific length. And these are cool. These help. I use attachment combs on a lot of haircuts. The second technique I'm going to teach is clipper over comb. That's where you use a clipper comb through your client's hair, and then run the clipper across the comb to cut the hair. Technique number 2. The third technique that I'm going to teach is clipper over finger. Generally speaking, when cutting long hair, including women, your instinct is to grab what? Shears. That's your instinct, correct? However, you can perform any haircut just as, in matter of fact, probably more efficiently using clippers. Clipper over finger is a technique that's extremely efficient and popular. That's where you comb through hair like you were going to use shears, and instead, you're going to use your clippers and cut right over your fingers. Awesome. That's a technique that cosmetologists always find amazing. Clipper cutting techniques. Now there will be a few other techniques that I use during this haircut that are going to increase your ability while you're in school or while you're in the shop. Number 1 is how you hold your clipper. Tony, have you ever walked into a cosmetology school or salon and watched a clipper cut?
Yeah, like
they were squeezing that clipper with their form, but who squeezes their clipper like a snake?
Yeah.
Like it's going to bite them.
Yeah.
Your clipper is not going to bite you. You want to hold your clipper firm, but it's very, very important to have a loose wrist. You need a lot of finesse when cutting the clippers. And if you're squeezing your clipper too tight, you're not going to have a smooth motion. You're going to have a jerky motion. And that jerky motion is going to show in your haircut. You're going to see a lot of weight lines and heavy spots if you use a jerky motion. You want to hold your clipper firm, and you want to have a nice, smooth motion. Anytime you're cutting hair, you want to have a circular motion with clippers. Have you guys heard that a little bit? What that means is when you're moving the clipper up the scalp, you want to rock back at the top of the stroke and start again. Rock back and start again. So in all actuality, the clipper's moving in a circle. You do not pull the clipper up the scalp and leave it on the head. When you do this, it's going to create a terrible weight line. It makes it much harder to take out. It makes it a lot harder on yourself. And in this business, it's all about efficiency. Everything is about efficiency. So your circular motion is going to give you a lot of efficiency in creating a nice, smooth transition. And the third major technique that I'm going to teach is with edge ups. It's with lineups. Does anybody here have trouble with lining up customers or clients? Nice. Well, I have a method that's going to improve that, and I'm going to touch on that when it comes time to do the lineup. Tony, you want to let everybody know where you're at?
Yeah. So, in touring some of the schools, what I find as the number 1 concern by new folks at cutting is going too high above the parietal ridge. You guys know what I'm talking about? That's when you go to past that no-fly zone, and now this is what it looks like. So you're a student, and you're cutting, and you realize you go too far, and then you turn off your clipper, and then you start doing this. You guys went from cutting them to penning them. I call this the "Oh Jesus" blending comb, and it never works. Jesus don't help me on this one. He helps me in plenty areas, but he never helps me grow the hair back on this. You guys know what I'm talking about? And the worst part as a student is you forget that sometimes they're facing the mirror and they see you petting them. And what do they say right after that? Don't worry, it'll grow back. Oh, it's just like lemon juice to the eye. Yeah? Okay, so look, for you guys, the coolest part about men's cutting is all the answers are on his head. If you just pay attention to the bone structure of his head will tell you how high to go and how high not to go. So I want to create, for me, there's many different ways to skin a cat, right guys? But for me, when I teach my students, I want to know where the protruding bone, or where the parietal ridge is on him. Because how many of you know the parietal ridge on a doll head is nothing like what you find on a human being? You guys know what I'm talking about? And so what I'm going to do is, based on that protruding bone, remember we talked about, that's the outermost bone on the side, I'm going to come straight off that bone, and I'm going to let his head tell me where his parietal ridge is. Do you guys see where the parietal ridge is now? I'm coming straight up. Do you see where the weight is? This is telling me, Tony, don't go into that. That's going to be your clipper over comb. Don't go in that with your clipper because your brain is saying, hair is sticking out, I want to go in there. And that's when you pull out your blending comb, right? And I want to prevent this from going forward. I want to be able to have a guideline that says, don't go past here, do clipper over comb there. So real quickly, if you guys can see, based on his head, it's going to reveal exactly where his head starts to curve in, which is his parietal ridge based on his.
Now I want you guys to see, it's ever so slightly, but when Tony is getting to the top of his stroke, he's rocking back and starting again. That rocking back motion helps him find that parietal ridge, helps him locate where that protruding bone is. Protruding bone. I can get it out. So he doesn't cut too much. So this is another important aspect of using that circular motion. What I'm doing with Evan here, we're going to give him his classic haircut. I'm going to keep it simple. I can tell he doesn't like things too fancy. I'm going to give him a number 2 fade, which means it's the lowest it's going to get around the sides is a number 2. Sometimes definitions and descriptions of haircuts can get very, very confusing. So a number 2 fade means I put the number 2 guard on my clipper, and underneath, right, we're going to give him a fade with the number 2. So with the number 2 attachment come on, I raise the clipper through Evan's hair and I rock back at the top of my stroke. I find the protruding bone that Tony's talking about now, and I follow that. I follow the protruding bone around Evan's head. And where's the protruding bone in the back? What's it called? What's this called?
Occipital bone.
Exactly. So I start from the protruding bones on the side of the head, and I connect it just under the occipital bone. Where do I put the fade? Where do I put the fade? Tony just told you. Your client's head's going to tell you where to put it. Make sense? Nice. So while I run this number 2 around Evan's head, Tony, let us know where you are.
Okay. So he's getting a number 2 on the sides. You guys see this now? You guys, everyone's following me? If I lose you, please stop me. If one of you is just lost, stop me. This is for you, yeah? We're all good? So you guys see it went around? Do you guys see where the weight is a little bit? Yeah, that's going to be my clipper over comb, okay? Now he wanted a 2 on the sides down to a 1 mid-fade. Where do I place the mid-fade? Well, you find where that temporal point is. You guys see that? You guys know where the temporal point is? That's where this comes down to a point. Okay, so your level 1 on a mid-fade is below that temporal point. So I'm going to take my 1 guard, and I'm going to go ahead and clear this area for level 1. I'll show you what that looks like. Guys, if I'm going to blend in the 1 to a 2, what guard do you think I want to try and throw on here? 1.5. Yeah, I know, real rocket science, real tough. But when you break it down in those steps and you start removing weight, all you're doing is softening. A lot of people like to use the word blending. Blending's fine, but I find that if you just kind of program your brain to think all I'm doing is softening, it typically takes the fear out of it. So here's his point. Here's Tony's point. You guys see that? Now I'm going to take my number 1 close, and I'm going to come underneath that. I'm not blending. I'm just creating my level 1 with a 1 guard. Around the ear. How many guys have trouble cutting around the ear? Oh, that top of the ear. Yeah? Anyone ever cut somebody's ear? No? Nobody, huh? We've all done it. You're going to cut somebody. We're family. We're family, guys. We can talk in here. Okay, look. So here, if you have trouble cutting behind the top of the ear, you guys ready for this? Look at how these guys are stretching their necks, because they all cut people. Look. So here it goes. You guys ready? Come on. You can't see? You can't see? I'm going to put my foot here so I know where that. Okay, all right. Okay, you guys ready? Look. Yeah, I know. All right, look. It's real tough. This is real hard. This is tough. Here it goes. Ready? There it is. Did you guys see it? There it is. You just pull up. You can manipulate the skin on the scalp up to about 1 inch to 1.5 inches, and it doesn't do anything other than just move the skin. You just create a bigger working space above the ear. What happens when you cut somebody's ear is because you remember folding the ear. But when you go against an ear that's folded, you've created a pocket where the ear inserts into the head and it catches the tip of a metal blade and you cut them. That's what happens. So stop it. Don't do it. Don't fold there. Fold when you go behind the ear, but on the first front half of the ear, all you're going to do is place your thumb above the ear, create the space, and cut. See how easy that was? Is that an aha moment for some of you? Does that help? Yeah? Behind the ear, what do I do? Fold the ear. Good.
Nice. Now I'm on step 2 of Evan's haircut. And then step 1, let me get this adjusted. In step one, we used attachment cones. We used our circular motion to start the blend or to start the softening or the fade, whatever you use. One thing that's important for anybody in education to understand is there's no one way to do things. We try not to do it, but sometimes up here, Tony and I might confuse you with a little terminology. But what everybody here needs to understand is when learning from now throughout the rest of your career, you're going to pick up techniques, you're going to pick up tips from different educators, from different books, from school, even from magazines. There is no one way to do something. I have something that works for me. Tony has something that works for him. Evan has something right now that's working for him. But your goal is throughout your career, you're going to pick up tips and tricks. Maybe some from me. Maybe some you're going to take those tips and those techniques and tricks, and you're going to make them yours. You're going to put your twist on them. But the goal is to remain, open-minded and understand that everybody does have something to teach, but that's not the only way. So step 2 with Evan's haircut is after I use my attachment comb and circular motion, I created a weight line that's right around the protruding bones that Tony's talking about, just below the parietal ridge. The technique I'm going to use to soften this is clipper over comb. You're going to need a clipper comb. Clipper combs are identified because they're generally pretty wide, about the width of a clipper blade. They also usually have a long spine. That spine is important. You might see some combs with a very short spine, very small spine. That's not good for clipper over comb. You need a long or a thick spine so you guys can create length. When the comb goes through the hair, rocking the comb back is what gives you length. In the shop, I usually use my first 2 or maybe 3 attachment combs. Maybe 0, 1, and 2. After that, my clipper comb is my number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And it eliminates the waste or the time of cycling through several different guards. Tony, do you have a clipper comb over here? I just want to.
It's fine.
This is Tony's a similar shape to mine. I want to show you guys a different clipper comb that was more square. But do you have a question? Yes.
Yeah, why is Tony cutting a V shape in the back?
Let's ask him.
Yes. Okay, so what was that pregnancy thing they called the back of the head? The bone? Pregnancy bone? Occipital bone, yeah, looks like pregnancy in the back. All right, so it's a bone, so it comes out, right? You guys ever see somebody with a big, look like their head's giving birth? Yeah. Some of them have like a really big protruding bone. You guys know, and then some have a big, and then some don't have any bone. Some it's just flat. Look like they were born with just on the floor and laid there for 5 years. Okay, look. So I don't know. This is the first time I'm cutting Tony's head. And I'm not sure where his is. It seems somewhat flat. I get a nice feel for it. But I don't want to accent. I don't want to single out if he's got a knot back there that really protrudes. What I want to do is I want to build up a fade so it somewhat hides the occipital ridge. Does that make sense? Again, everything's based on him. This haircut is for his head. Sometimes you'll find there's a little bit extra fatty tissue behind the ear. And it's tough for the nails to get that blend out because you have this dip, right? And we'll go over some of that. In fact, since we're on it right now, how many of you guys have had some real dips in heads and stuff? You know what you guys do to blend that out? Use your thumb again, stretch it out. Yeah, stretch it out. Yeah. So the reason why I did this is called a drop fade. I always start mine this way when I'm cutting somebody new because I don't know where all these lumps and bumps are yet. So I can always raise the fade. How many of you know it's a little bit hard to lower a fade? Yeah, once you cut too high, right? So who had the question on the drop? Yeah. So I come just above the ear and I always drop, and I could always build up the weight higher later on. I just can't lower it later when I go too high.
So what Tony's saying is this: his natural head, his natural head shape, following the protruding bones, led him somewhat low on his initial outline of the fade, and he's going to raise that gradually so he doesn't go too high. One of the problems that he identified at the beginning of the haircut is people going too high and exposing the negative qualities of the shape of some men. And I'm sorry, what's your name, ma'am? Debbie? All right, Debbie, I'm Dave, that's Tony. So everybody heard Debbie's question, correct?
What are you doing here?
Why he was creating, why it seemed like, that's what he said. And what Tony's doing, he's working from the bottom to the top. And he's working cautiously. I do this, most barbers and stylists need to do this as well. Your first time seeing a client, you don't know of the hurdles and challenges. You might have a gentleman, his head seems full, but he has a humongous scar from a car accident, that he doesn't want exposed. So the only way you're going to have the ability to get through those hurdles and still make your client happy is the first time to move slow. Now, I tell you, in my barber shop, I don't go to work to cut hair. Going to work and cutting somebody's hair once, there's nothing in it for me. I go to work every day to build clients. I go to work every day. The first time I cut somebody's hair, if it's a new client, my goal is to get them to buy into Dave Diggs, buy into my style and my service. And that's where I'm going to be able to cut time on a haircut. The first time I cut a gentleman's hair, it might take me a full 30 minutes.
That's you.
And then after I cut his hair the third and the fourth time, I might have that haircut down to 18 or 19 minutes. And decreasing the time it takes to serve a client is what's going to increase your revenue. Why did everybody here, or I want somebody to raise their hand and tell me why they chose this industry? How about you, Debbie? What do you do? What's your occupation?
Cosmetology.
All right, why did you choose this industry?
Well, because it's people oriented, it's
Nice.
creative, and I decorate the world one person at a time.
Awesome. So you love improving people's lives. That's great. And what's your name? Keisha. Keisha, why did you choose this industry? To make somebody feel better? Awesome. What's your name, gentleman with the New York hat? Boo, why'd you choose this industry? Huh? Make people look good? Awesome. So I'm here and make people look good, make people feel good. I'll be honest. I chose this living because I needed to make money. I'll be honest. Now, don't get me wrong. I love to do hair. I picked up my first pair of clippers when I was 12 years old. I kind of ran from choosing it as a profession. I chose it as a profession so I could make money. I figured, hey, I could be one half of a family. And that was my goal. And my original goal out of barber college was to make $1,000 a week.